Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to Abnormal Voyages. My name is David, and today we're on a very special cemetery safari. As we travel around and find these wonderful graves and memorials to those lost, a big part of that is ghost stories of spirits who have remained even though their physical forms have died. So join us as in this spooky season, we investigate beyond death.
We're going to a place that you've never heard of before. It's Abnormal Voyages. You're gonna learn something new. We're gonna open new doors. It's Abnormal Voyages.
Here in Willoughby, Ohio, there's a ghostly mystery that has been around for quite a while. Back in 1933, there was a young girl who came to town. She was dressed entirely in blue, blue scarf, blue sweater, blue blouse, blue skirt. She was a very pretty girl, if a little shy. Nobody knew her name. She checked into a boarding house and just said that her name was Kate and left it at that. She kept her distance from people. And then one day, out of nowhere, this girl in blue jumped in front of a train. Nobody knows if she did it to end her life, if she was trying to catch the train, or why she may have done this. But, sadly, her life was now over. They were able to recover her body where she miraculously had no wounds or blood anywhere. The cause of death was a fractured skull. The only thing on her was a blue purse that they were able to recover. And inside, she had merely a train ticket to Pennsylvania and 90 cents. The local people donated a spot of land for her to be buried in, which was right here. Oddly enough, over 3,000 people attended the funeral of this nameless girl that nobody was really sure who she was. This is her grave here. This happened on Christmas Eve in 1933. And they say, ever since that day, people have seen her here at her grave, dressed all in blue, with business, assumably, still to be done. Now, 60 years after this happened, they claim to have possibly discovered who this girl in blue was. If you look a little further down, they have now added Josephine Kuzmic, or, as she was better known, Sophie, was potentially the girl in blue. Though they say that this is who she was, the official record still calls her just the girl in blue, and people continue to see her spirit roaming around here to this very day. Wherever Sophie may be, let's hope that someday soon she's able to find some rest. Lakeview Cemetery in Cleveland, Ohio is the final resting place for many famous people, but one of the more infamous graves here in the cemetery is the Hasserat Angel. Right behind me here, this is actually more commonly called by its actual name, which is the Angel of Death Victorious. As you can tell, the wings are outstretched. This is a torch that is turned upside down so there's no flame. It's meant to show the extinguished life that the Angel of Death is in charge of. And what's really striking about this piece is here, it's almost as if she is crying black tears. It's sadness over all the lives that have been lost that she is in charge of carrying on to the next life. There are many legends associated with this statue, such as there's an evil woman whose spirit lives inside it now. They say she murdered her son and husband, and that when she died and her ashes were put here, lightning struck the statue and turned it black to remind all of the evil that she had committed. If you touch or look deep into the eyes of the statue, you are supposedly struck with an incurable disease. If you dare to kiss the statue on the lips, your heart supposedly will instantly stop and you'll die right on the spot. It seems like this is one statue better left alone. We continue our tour at Bellefontaine Cemetery in St. Louis, Missouri. Here is the final resting place for the Limp family, one who was supposedly cursed. Originally gaining their fame and fortune from a brewery they opened, which was actually more successful than Budweiser, soon things turned to the dark side, and in a short period of time, no less than 4 members of the Limp family all committed suicide. It seemed that no amount of money and success could get rid of this curse that lingered on their family. To this very day, people still claim to see these restless spirits walking around and inside this tomb. The mansion that they lived in has become a very popular spot for seeing spirits as well. It seems that the general consensus is that even if the curse is gone, the Limp family themselves remain. For our next ghostly tale, we head further south into Louisiana.
New Orleans has plenty of stories to be found and the history and all the people that once lived here. One such story is the story of Josiearlington. This is her original tomb here. We're going to get a little closer. Now, Josiearlington was actually born Mary, and when she was young, her parents were upset that she didn't come home from curfew at the right time one day, and they refused to let her in the house. So Mary turned to prostitution, which unfortunately was very prominent back then for young girls without education. She changed her name to Josie, and before long she was a hit in that world and actually became a madam of her own house. Later on, she completely changed her name to become Josiearlington. She made a whole lot of money, which upset a lot of the more prominent figures in New Orleans, and she spent some of that money building an extravagant tomb here in one of the nicest graveyards. As you can see, it's huge. This would have been the equivalent of about $150,000 in today's money. Now, when Josie passed away, she was only here for about a year before her niece, who she had left everything to, had squandered all of her money, and they ended up selling this tomb that Josie was in. So the new people took Josie's remains out, and they are somewhere else in the cemetery at an undisclosed location. Nobody's really sure what happened to her body, and they took over the tomb. Now, Josie fought hard, of course, to have this tomb and become what she did from such a low place to having all that money. So they say her spirit is very upset about this and still haunts these exact grounds. This statue here has been reported to come to life at night and wander throughout. And in fact, they have found this statue. They'll come in the mornings and they'll find it in other places in the graveyard. They're not sure how it got there. It's very firmly down, and yet they end up finding it in other places and having to bring it back here to the tomb. Also, if you look up here, these flames, Josie died February 14th, Valentine's Day, and some people report that on the date of her death, you can see these actually glowing red. Some people say they even turn into actual fire. The true story, who knows? But hopefully someday there will be justice for Josie and her remains can come back here to her tomb.
Becoming a ghost isn't the only way that people have stuck around after death. Here at Chestnut Hill Cemetery in Exeter, Rhode Island, we find the grave of Mercy Brown, who was possibly a vampire. In the late 1800s, tuberculosis, or consumption as it was known at the time, was rapidly making its way through the people. The Brown family, unfortunately, were victims of this disease, though at the time nobody knew anything about this sickness. The mother was the first to die, and she was quickly followed by their eldest daughter. After that, Mercy caught it and also passed away. After she passed, her brother also caught the sickness and began showing the same signs of lack of energy and having weird dreams where he said his sister Mercy was sitting on his chest. Soon the people were convinced one of the people from his family was a vampire who was coming back and killing the rest of the family. They exhumed the 3 women's graves, and only Mercy looked like she hadn't deteriorated at all. they knew it must be her. So they cut out her heart and burned it on a nearby rock. This, they said, was to keep her from rising up and trying to kill anyone else. Though she may not have been a vampire in the end, her story did make its way around the world, and soon inspired a man by the name of Bram Stoker.
We end our tour in Columbus, Ohio, here at Green Lawn Cemetery at the Hayden Mausoleum. This is the largest mausoleum in the entire cemetery. It was built for Charles H. Hayden, who was a banker, back in 1904. He and many of his descendants are all entombed here. They say if you go up and knock on the door, sometimes you just might hear a ghostly knock right back at you. Well, that's all the time we have for today, adventurers. Thanks for tagging along. My name is David, and this has been Abnormal Voyages. I hope, if anything, what you take from this is that the world is a spooky and wonderful place. And sometimes, to see the most amazing things out there, all you have to do is knock.
Thanks for watching Abnormal Voyages. Thanks for watching.